Okay, let me record it. So the mobile UI, okay, and it's obviously very important, and also it's the first thing you need to work on for your app, because most of the mobile apps are visual, has UI. There are exceptions if you're making some kind of background service, if you do more kind of a system development on mobile, then you might not need to build an AI or you don't need to touch UI, but probably 98% of app, you need to have a very nice UI. And today we all know the UI is very, very important. Okay, so let me, some of the, the codes here, just to talk about the same idea. All right, so if you are building an application, mobile application, or any kind of product, right? Kind of the same the idea we talked before, that you need to focus on solving problem, focus on their customer experience. Okay, so if you have a specific, group of customers, you need to think about how they're going to use your application, and then think about what kind of technology you need to provide. It might be a mobile app, but it may be just a web, or maybe something else. But if it's in a mobile app, then you need to start think about exactly the functionalities, the UI, how it's going to work. Okay, but UI is obviously at a higher level than your code, than the implementation. But using the same idea, you should realize UI is actually more important. Okay, that's the part that directly talks to users, and they really don't care about if you use Flutter, if you use React Native, if you do just native developments, they really don't care. They just care about whether it looks good, whether it's easy to use, right? Here's some of the examples. These are really, really old. I cut that from the Android slides. I don't know which version for the Gmail app, right? So it's the Android Gmail app, maybe at least 4 or 5 years ago. Okay, today the app quite different, but the major layout didn't really change much. So for those of you who are using this app a lot, they have definitely a lot of good features. The reason I want to point out this one is because the email system is actually a relatively more complicated application with more options, especially for the complicated system like Gmail. They give you a lot of other options, tags, search, a lot of other features, categories. So I think they're doing really well. Again, the very old version of Facebook, even though the new version shouldn't really change too much. That's another, think about some of their UI, the user experience, and they have a lot of content, but they actually make the UI and the UX very simple by focusing on using this scroll kind of a gesture. Okay, it's basic endless scroll bar that you keep going, and then click, go back. So even though the content is very complicated, but the experience is not. This is Uber app, and this is probably one of the latest version of Uber. Again, for those of you who've been using this one also does require a lot of interaction steps, getting location confirmations, and a minor mistake will actually cause a lot of issues between the driver and the passenger. But so if you've been using this one, you don't really expect a lot of issues. Airbnb definitely very, very popular and hot startup, and I didn't use too much about their app, but you can look at their UI. Should be very intuitive. This is Instagram, I guess. I don't know how late this version is. It should be one of the latest versions. But from all this app, you can see how much effort they put on designing all of this and then making all of this experience nice. Okay, so definitely very important. All right, so to start with the design, okay, you need to learn a very, very simple and basic skill, which is wireframing. Okay, even though you're not UI designers, most of us, probably cannot really do too nice UI. So that's why we never expect you to deliver a very nice UI that well. But at least you need to have very basic design ideas, and also at least you should know how to get things started. Okay, the good thing is for mobile app, it's actually a relatively simple kind of system because a lot of things are fixed. So you have the screens. Even though the different phones may have different sizes, but at least it has a rectangle there. You can do either vertical or horizontal. But you can easily visualize that kind of size and layout. And also, because there are so many apps there are a lot of references for you to use. a lot of typical features, you probably can directly see, oh, actually, we should do this button, we should do this floating button, we should do this kind of sidebar, we should do this top bar, or this list view. Some of those, you have a lot of experience, so it makes the design a little bit easier. All right, so for all of your project, okay, the next assignment will be come up with your UI design. Okay, so this design doesn't have to be on code, but this design has to be visual. Okay, you can draw it, you can use some of the tools to do it, all of those works. Okay, let me show you some examples. This is kind of the design we're expecting. Okay, the easiest way is you just simply get a piece of paper, just draw the design. Okay, and then you don't need to write documentations. You don't need to write words. In the old days, when we talk about software engineering, when you were designing software, you need to have not only the visual part, but also more importantly, a lot of the textual documentation. But that's not the way we do software today. The less text, the better. Just focus on the visual part. Okay, drawing it on a piece of paper is the most straightforward way. It's also a lot of that's how the most UI designers are doing. So you should just think about the whole user workflow. Okay, like this one here is a perfect example. The point that you click on the icon to launch your app, you go to your home screen, not home screen, login screen, and then once you sign in, you go to the home screen where you can see some of the basic, dashboard type of information, and you click on one of the item and go to the next, maybe some kind of category list view. And if you click on one of those, you can then go to the detail page, detail screen, and then you can also think about how do you go back, whether to use some kind of bottom navigation bar or just use the back button or something else, or top back button, all this common widget you can have, right? So this will very quickly give you some ideas on what you need to make for your app, how you're gonna make it. Okay, so this is something everyone should start with. Probably some of you already did that, but just do it on a piece of paper, or if you want to use some more professional tool, you can also do it. All right. So just more example, you can Google and find a lot of this kind of examples. These are really actually nice. I don't know if you guys can draw this. I know if you have some kind of art design background, you learned some painting before, this is not too difficult, but you don't need to do this kind of professional or this one. Okay, this one I don't think it's that easy to draw. I don't know how good your drawing skill is, but this looks simple, but it's not that easy. You could also do with tools, okay? Or this one, I don't think you need a tool. This one you just use. I sometimes just use a PowerPoint, Google Slides, just draw some of the boxes. It works really well, okay? Like this one, perfect example. I don't know if you can read it. It has a splash screen first, and then go to the home screen. Home screen, you have a play album, camera, these buttons, and then you click. They didn't specify which one you click. You should. Okay, you should have an arrow to say, I click on this button, it go to the next one, go to the play screen, and now have a settings screen. The next row have a record baby's name, record message, and album, right? So every single screen make this kind of detail, right? So that you will know the whole scope of the project. You can easily estimate how much effort, how hard it is to do it. Also the navigation back and forth. This will give you very clear guidance on your progress. Okay, so this week I want to finish these 2 screens. Next week I want to finish that screen. And then you can see how much left. Okay, so everyone should have this kind of wireframe design, whether by drawing or using some of the tools. You can go more professional. Okay, there are a few tools I can maybe try to search a little bit. Like this screen you see here, they're not coming from the actual real app. Okay, so you can design and draw all of this using the tools without doing any kind of coding. That's what most of the UI designers are doing today. If you go to work with a company, a big company or startup company, they have dedicated UI designers who mostly don't know how to code. Then they would design all of this and then they give it to the programmers. But the design you will receive from designers pretty much looks like a real app. Okay, there are a lot of tools to do this. Okay, let me show you some of this. I know one of them is called the Marvel, and this one here. I know this one is very popular, but I can't open it today for some reason. This one, as you can see, you can basically draw something like this just on the web UI. It's really professional. Okay, I saw a lot of this kind of design, and you can share those like something like this. Okay, It looks like a real app, but they're just drawing and drag and drop to configure all this UI content and widgets. Okay, so particularly good for UI design. This one you can sign up for free with one project, but I can't open it for some reason. Let me go to the dashboard. Let me see if I can open some of those. Yeah, that's where I got stuck. But anyway, you can imagine there are a lot of other tools. If you Google UI wireframing tools or prototyping tools, there are a lot of options. Okay, so most of those will give you some kind of free tier to try. But again, you don't have to do too much of this because using all of this tool also takes some time. All right, you should really focus on actually developing it. Okay, that's our goal. So drawing on a piece of paper, using the slides, totally fine. All right, so that's our next assignment. Okay, keep in mind that you need to start with a full design of all the screens. All right, and one tip I have again for CS majors, because most of us, we're not too good at art. Okay, that's a common issue with all the programmers. Nothing wrong with that. Just think about, that's actually part of the reason why today, I don't know how much you see it. We are doing a lot of CS education. The big topic is how do we promote more female students to do coding. I don't know what's your opinion on that. Even though I did a lot of work on that, we have some of this, we have She Codes Club, we have some other clubs. We actually spend a lot of efforts and time to promote it. I can see the trend being changed. But on the other side, I personally don't think that we should have every female student just to learn coding. I just feel naturally that's not something that the girls will really have a lot of passion by default. And the same idea, just like if we send all the guys to learn painting or drawing, I think that's very, very boring. So even though it's good to promote, but I think at the same time we should respect everyone's interests. So back to my point, don't worry if you're not too good at design and UI stuff. One idea is just to use reference. Okay, that's something I mentioned earlier. If you think about all the other apps, how they do it, or just look at something similar, which is already in the market, and then borrow their ideas, borrow their templates, and that give you a lot of good start point. Especially for mobile, it's really easy. I don't expect anyone who have issue on coming out the design ideas. Okay, just use some of the references. Okay, in fact, some of the framework like Flutter. Okay, there is something called the Flutter marketplace. Okay, let me show you. I'll talk more about this in near future. But I just want to show you beforehand that there are people that making the themes and frames for you to use. Okay, so let me show you this. So basically, like if we go, for example, this flat. I know this one was very early. So if you click on this one, all right. So you can buy this for only $50. But what they provide is they provide you a whole bunch of a template for you to use. As you can see, this is a login screen. This is a tutorial screen. Home screen with images, detail page, message screens, tabs, navigation bars, image views, grid views, this progress bars, all this user icon. Pretty much everything you can see from the common mobile app design, they actually have the template for you.
Can you get the Flutter code from this? Or just
Yes. So you buy it. These are not designed. Okay, this is different. This is a code. They have implementation code for you to use. I haven't tried it yet, but yeah, that's otherwise nobody's gonna buy it. This you can actually see all the available ones from here. So pretty sophisticated, all right. But for us right now, learning it, okay, you shouldn't start with this, okay, because that you will lose a chance of figuring out all the details. But I'll talk a little bit more about this probably in the second half of the course, because this template is actually, if you think about this today, if you need to make an app for somebody else, for example, if you're taking a consulting project, you don't really have to start everything from scratch, okay? A lot of the things you can actually just reuse, or you pay for $50, buy the template, and you just simply modify it. It can make something really nice very, very quickly. And you might be able to charge them for thousands or $10,000, depending on how complicated the app is. But your efforts actually can be really managed. Okay, so that there are a lot of good opportunities about consulting. Okay, and also for similar idea, if you are familiar with WordPress, not sure how many of you have done that. Okay, that's basically how you can build a website, right? When we ask you to build a website, if you've never done WordPress, you're probably saying, "Oh, I'm gonna code HTML." And then if I say, "Well, could you add some kind of build an e-commerce type of website?" And then you need to think about, oh, I need to figure out how to actually build a backend. I need a login system. I need a database. I need to manage all the transactions. But the truth is, if you go to a company, ask them to build an e-commerce site, nobody's going to write everything from scratch. They just get a WordPress template. And they literally can set up a very functional, nice UI e-commerce site within probably 2 hours. Okay, as everything is done. So that's how they build the application today. But when I see this market place, I kind of see the same kind of development approach for mobile. Okay, very nice. So this is not new. React Native also has something like this. They have even more. I think they have even more. I don't know which one is official. They have more templates available because React Native was a little bit longer. Like this company here, they have the template for both, for React Native and also for Flutter. But these are very good resources. Okay, just so you know, if you are already very good at Flutter, React Native, in the future, if you want to make another application, you don't really need to start from scratch. Okay, take one of this, and then it's much better than what you can design. All right. So for now, don't worry. You can borrow ideas. I wouldn't ask you to buy it right now to read their code because then you need to learn all the details first. All right. So now let's dive into the technical part. Okay. For any kind of a UI system, just remember this kind of a structure. Okay. When we talk about building a UI, programming a UI, it's always 2 steps. Step 1, you need to think about all the widget you want to use. If it's a login screen, really simple, you will need to know how to do the input box, text field, edit text, whatever you call it in different UI system. You need the buttons. You probably need some text. You need maybe a little bit logo, images to show. So those are the widgets. Okay. Any kind of UI system will provide you all the standard widgets, pretty much enough for you to use. Very rarely you will need to customize and build your own widget. Even you need to do that, you need to think about if you need it, because if it's a brand new widget, people probably don't know how to use this, right? So that's the widget part. Widget part is actually easy because it's always provided by the framework, just like what we did last time. You can just Google and find some examples, take it to use. But only have a widget, it won't work because you need to align them, you need to position them in the right place. That's when you need to use a layout. Right? Layout don't have anything visual. They're only there to help you to manage the position, the size, how do they align so that it looks perfectly, and also it's very compatible with different sizes of screen, right? So any kind of UI, even you do Java Swing, I don't know how many of you did that. Very, very old-fashioned UI system, same thing. They have some kind of UI classes for you to manage how you place the position. Or even newer Java UI systems should be called Java Flex. I never done that, or I think called Java Flex, but same thing. You do HTML exactly the same. Okay, all the CSS, those things are there to help you to modify the layout. And if you use the Bootstrap, they give you their own way of managing the layout. And other like desktop applications, .NET application, same thing. All right, so all with these 2 pieces, you need to learn how to use the widgets and also how to place them into the layout. This is what I mean here. All right, you figure out all this scroll bar, buttons, icons, and then you need to think about how do you align them, how do you place them. Also, technically, I assume everyone already know, any kind of a UI component at the end, it's just a kind of is a tree, right? There's always one root, okay, that contains everything, but every node could contain 1 or more children, right? But since we talk about the widget and the layout, normally the layout are the containers, are the component that can contain children. And the widget normally just one child, just one specific node. Okay, just think about that, a tree. So that's why any kind of system, think about HTML, right? Think HTML, what is a root tag for HTML code? HTML, right? You should always start with HTML tag. Okay, that's the only tag you have from the top layer. And after that, you have head, you have body, and then inside the body you can have more things. Okay, that's how it organized. But then if you visualize that, it's a tree. And same thing here. Think about the app we have so far. We always start with a material app. That's a root container. And then the material app, you can configure title and also, I think they use a body, right? And then from there, you do a lot of others. Column, row, center, all of this. And then eventually you got a text field, all of this specific widget, okay? So it's all with the tree based, all right? It makes sense because eventually your UI had to be running somewhere, has to be contained in the screen, in the UI, in the Android or iOS system. So you always start with one thing and then you divide them. All right, this is just another example. This is an Android example, but it shows idea. So this is a very simple UI. You look at it, okay, 2 buttons, 4 checkboxes. But to build this one, you need not only the widget, but also all the UIs there. If you're familiar with Android, they use a lot of linear layout, relative layout. That's how they can group them together. That's how they can align them horizontally or vertically. How do they split the space and everything, all right? And then when you build all this object and class, put them together, that's where you need to build a tree. Okay, one contains another. All right. All right, so these are just overview that I want to give you. Okay, very important thing for you to do from after today is to build, to design your UI, draw the wireframe, and all the screens, all the flows, how that's going to work. Okay, so from now, let's start to just play around with the code and different kind of ways to do all the layout and the widget. As I mentioned, I think widgets are relatively easier. Okay, so let's go back to the Flutter documentation. If you go back here, right? All right, so always go back to Flutter and then with the docs. I actually found there is a quick link here. So it says widget catalog. So you go there. We told you last time you can find and search all the kind of widget you want, or another way, just simply Google it. But it's not a bad idea just to browse the things available. Sometimes give you better ideas. Okay, if you find something like yesterday, on Tuesday we're talking about how to get input, how to get buttons. You go here, you can look at all the style to see if that's something you want, right? And then if you need some of this, and like this outline button, and then we can just go to see if there are any example code actually coming from here, right? So from here you can see the icon button, what it looks like, and then just get a code, right? So the widget actually is not too difficult. I think in the beginning, what really makes you confused is all the layout part. So let's start with that. All right. So for the layout, there are actually a lot of ways to do it. Okay. So for example, let's go back to this page here. There will be specific discussion about layout. Here, you click on the layout. As you can see, it has a line, aspect ratio, baseline, constraint box, container center, all of this. And then after that, they also have multiple child layout widget. That's the type of thing you can have to include multiple things, right? Column, flow, stack, grid view, and you can make things like this. Typical thing is the photo gallery app. You can have a row, list view, all of this. So there's so many kind of ways for you to do the layout. The reason they give you so many options because some of those can make your specific UI much simpler to develop. So again, back to this example, grid view. All right, so if you want to make this gallery app, it's definitely the best choice. Very simple. You specify the number of columns and rows, and then it can load the things inside. So just for different purposes. However, at the same time, it gives the developer a lot of learning curve because if you just look at a book and learn all this layout one by one, at the end you probably still get lost. Okay, it's very hard to figure out the differences. Okay, so the way I'm going to tell you is, let's just focus on one or two very simple, commonly used layout, and then let's try to stick with those, because that way you don't have to know too much, and also you won't you will use those layout again and again, so that you become really good. All right. Also, part of the reason I want to do that is because myself, I'm actually very, very familiar with Android stuff. And in Android, we actually use this, also they have different layout. But at the end, you actually find this linear layout actually is the most powerful layout. Pretty much, if you have in my opinion, if you have a linear layout, you can do anything you want. So the way linear layout works is you place all the widgets and items in a certain orientation one by one in sequence. So if you do a horizontal linear layout, that's what the image here shows. And every item will be placed on the right, and it's in the same row. You can also change the orientation to be vertical. That's basically more typical on the mobile app. The item is one, above, below another, and vertically. And you could actually build, I think, almost every possible UI with linear layout only. It's just a matter of sometimes maybe it's a little bit more difficult to build this way if you switch to, for example, grid view layout, and it just makes your life much easier. However, with this one weapon, it's actually, you can do quite a lot of things. So that's why in Flutter, I look at all the widgets. I think they pretty much give you the same functionality. So that's why I really want to focus on this kind of a linear type of layout. In Flutter, we don't call it linear layout. In Flutter, they have this two layout configuration. One is called column, one called row. So we actually hardly been using it. But I want to tell you that you must fully master this two kind of layout. If you don't know this two, I don't think you can make your app work, your UI work. But if you know these two very well, I think it's almost enough for you to make any kind of the design you want. All right, so let's start with this two, and then show you some examples. All right, so let's go back to the code. All right, so for the coming couple of weeks, we're not going to touch too much other functional code, just focus on the UI. Basically, is this part here. Okay, so let's make the code cleaner. I'm going to make another screen. So this is the screen we showed you last time. Let me still run this app here. I still have that. Okay, so. All right, so let me restart the emulator. And let's try to run it. All right, so let me restart the thing here. Not sure if that caused an issue. All right, so this is our screen. Okay, so let me just copy and paste this one. We're going to talk about the linear. I would just call it UI1. Okay. Something wrong here. All right, so let me get a very clean version. Okay, I'll rename it to be UI1 page. very quickly, just update all of this. My UI1 page state. Remember the underscore is private. All right, let me clean up the code. Let's say that. I'm going to delete all of this, okay, just to make it really simple and easy to follow. So we're not using it anymore. All right, so these are the things we did last time. Let me just delete all of this. All right, so that gave us a pretty simple version to use. All right, so let's go back to the main screen. I'm gonna do start with this new screen. I'm gonna import it first. It's called a UI1. And then from here, I think it's called my UI1 page. All right, so something is wrong here. Let's see. All right, let me try one more time. Okay, let's try to clean up the project. Okay, I was testing something else this morning. All right. Again, this didn't happen before the class. You know what? Let's not waste time on this one. Okay, I'm gonna start just a new project since there's not much thing going on here. All right, I'm just gonna use the starting point here. Okay, so hopefully this one can run. Let me just run it first. All right. I'm gonna delete all this stuff we don't need. So it gives us a clear code base. Also, I don't need a floating button. Okay. Something really, really simple. All right, let's try one more time. All right, so interesting. That's this is totally unexpected. So let me open the iOS emulator. I don't know if that's the reason. All right, so let's run this here. All right. Anyway, something wrong with the emulator. I don't know what I did before the class, but yeah. Anyway, so this is the same app. Okay, so let's get back here and then speed up. So the UI part. Okay, only focus on this little effort method here. So as I mentioned, the scarf fold. I think that's part of the material design that you have everything from the top bar, body, and also you can have a floating button. I just deleted the floating button. Then app bar is pretty simple, just title. And then for the body, that's where you specify the whole screen, okay? Now we're gonna focus on just about the layout, okay? I talk about this column. That's a very useful and practical type of layout. It simply means that you place everything vertically one by one, okay? So let's see here, you have a text. So for the column, okay, the most important one, let's delete this one to get really the simple thing here. So first of all, the center means that you, let's actually also delete the center, okay, so that we don't get distracted. Okay. All right. Okay, so I reformat the code. So we got a really simple way of making this screen, so which only has a column. So the column has a very important attribute called children. That means you could include multiple elements. And then you can see you have a list of widgets. Okay, that's how they specify it. You can always do it. And then if you forgot how this one works, it's really simple. If you do children, it gave you this on auto suggestion. You just go here. It's going to format everything for you. A list of elements, right? And then the easiest one to test will be the text, right? So we can have a title one here. All right, so that's your text. So let's actually try to refresh the page, go back to the app. So that's where you can see the title, okay, the text. And then you can do more because this one has a lot of children. So you can have more text here. I got 5 of those. I change the number, refresh. So these are all the elements placed one after another, right? Very easy. So anything you place here inside the children, it will be aligned vertically one by one. Okay, because think about it, most of the apps have this vertical layout, vertical orientation. So you probably need to use this column a lot. All right. So that's the very easy and first try for this kind of a layout. All right. So let's actually place a little bit more like a visual element, for example, buttons, so that we can see some of the things a little bit easier. So I'm going to go back to pick some of the buttons. Right. So let's do button, flat button, icon button. Let's do the flat button. We have, let's try something like this with a blue color here. Okay, so I'll put 2 title and 1 button here. Like this one here. All right, so now you got this little button here. All right, button allows you to see this one more visual about the size and everything, so that you can test the layout, right? So let's actually go a little bit more about this layout. Now, first of all, right now these ones are all stick to the top corner, right? So if you want to, for example, center everything, and you already know the solution, you could put like a center to contain this whole column so that everything will be centered. But I think there are also some of the attributes you can play around with here. Okay, one of them is called main axis alignment. Okay, so let's test this one and see what you can get. If you do a center here, okay, and then refresh your UI, as you can see, it actually places the whole thing into the center of the screen. And there's another one, okay, I think, let's see if that works. There is a cross axis alignment, okay. If this one you do center, it doesn't do much. So the difference I think here, okay, let's figure out what this one does later. But then the main axis alignment is if you are using the vertical, okay, and then this line here is your main axis. So if you're aligning, no, this one here is the main. Oh, no, I take it back. So the vertical one, the vertical axis is the main axis. So if you align that center, so that's why your item will be placed right here in this center. Okay, so there should be other options beside the center. If you do, let's try end maybe. If you try that one, it puts that to the bottom. All right, and then if you try start, that should give you back by default. Okay, so that's one thing. Another one is here. What if you want to place things also to the other center? We know that the center thing works, but I'm wondering if there is another way to do this one. Okay, so let's actually Google it a little bit. So Flutter column center horizontally. Yeah, that's what I saw. Why this one didn't work? Yeah, the cross-axis alignment, I think that's what it's used for. Could that be because of the iOS? No, I don't think so. So let's try this again. All right, so let's come back to this one later, okay? Because I was testing the row. That's how it works. So, but for now, most important one is the main axis actually goes with either vertical or horizontal, depending if you use column or row. The other one, we'll look at more documentation. Okay, we're not gonna waste time here. So that's step one here, or at least if you go back to center thing using the center container. Okay, so if you do a child and you go here, add that one back. So that allows you to center for sure. Okay, we know that one works. It just when you are the other cross axis alignment. So we'll look at that later. Okay, so I'll leave it here. All right, so that's the step one. So you know how to put things, vertically, just like this. But just knowing this one won't work. Okay, for example, if you say that this doesn't look good because it's too close to each other. In many cases, you need to have extra spaces. All right, adding space, you could add something called a margin, or you could add something called padding. Right, so we'll talk more about that later. Very quickly, I will just show you one example. If you want to say, okay, this title 2, okay, too close to this button, I want to add some kind of margin. So to add margin, you could use something called a container, okay? Again, there are different ways. This is the way I find the easiest. So if you wrap this in with a container, okay? So anything in Flutter works like this way. If there's a containment relationship, there has to be a child or children that specify the containment relationship. So if you do this one right now, nothing changed. But this container allows you to give some extra margin or padding, right? So for margin, let me try this. If you do margin, I think it uses this kind of property to specify the margin to all the different edges. So if I specify, for example, 30, right? And now I go back to refresh my page. And you can see this title 2 got some margins above and below. That's how you can split them. But then if you say, oh, I only want the margin to the bottom, so I think you need to choose a different way. I think it's only here, and you will see bottom 50 units, and then if you refresh the page, right? Oops. All right, so you only got a margin below it. And so that's how it works. So this is a container. We'll come back to this. Okay, very easy, simple way to specify the margin and padding. But in many cases, before you do that, you can actually use the column to give you some kind of control first. All right. So let's say that if you're building this UI, okay, maybe we'll still go back to this login example. All right. So let me add one more button here. Okay, 2 buttons, and then this one is login. This one is sign up. All right, obviously you don't want them to touch so close, especially for some of the title. Most likely those will be your like app name. Maybe here just say login screen. Okay, so you probably want the app name to be very top, very big, and take some space. And then the login screen, the little small title, maybe a little bit smaller, and then the button probably will stay in the second half of the screen, and you also need some extra spaces for the input box. Okay, let me get those very quick. Okay, so Flutter, and where to find it here, just to go material design. Let me get this one very quick. Password and email. Okay, so this is the email. All right, so you got this stuff all together. So let's work on to split them up. Okay, one thing you can do is to give different weight for different elements. Okay, so before you understanding the weight, another thing you can also do is just to tell exactly how much height or width. So for example, I believe you can do something like this. Okay, I go back to container. Okay, I specify a child. Okay, this one doesn't change anything, but I guess I can do a height here. For example, I do 300. I go back, and you can see this thing here becomes so big because the height I changed it to be 300, even though the text size has been not changed, but this widget specifically has a height of 300. Okay, so this obviously is a very easy way to do. You can give it the height and width for everything, so they will basically show up here. But there is a big downside of doing this. What is that?
The screen size of the phone.
Exactly. So if you hard code all these units, and that's not going to work in the same way across different devices, different screen sizes. So in general, you should try to avoid using hard coded sizes in your mobile device, except a couple of exceptions. If you do margin and padding, that's okay, because most of the time the margin and padding are very small value. It shouldn't affect too much. But if you're spending height and width, very rarely you see people use specific hard-coded value. So that's why this is not really the good way. A better way is you, instead of seeing 300, you should see some kind of ratio. Okay, maybe this app name here should take 1/3 of a screen, or this part here maybe take 1/5 of the screen, something like that. If you use percentage using ratio, it's going to automatically scale across different screens, right? So that's when you need to learn how to specify the width of the UI widget. Okay, so this screen comes from Android, but Flutter works exactly the same way. The first screen here, you see the 3 text boxes just by default align one after another, and then the second one, you can give them different weight. You can see that the first 2 take the majority of the screen, where the third one only has the space they need. But then the first 2, you can equally split the whole screen. So you're going to give them this weight 1 and 1. The third one, you give them 0. But giving them 0 doesn't mean they don't have space. They just have the minimum. And then the third one, you want to say, okay, the first 2 are the same size, but they only take half the screen. And the third one will take the second half of the screen. So you give it the ratio 1:2. So they will actually split the screen based on that kind of percentage. All right. So in Flutter, you can do the same thing. All right. So let's go back to here. With that, you actually need to use a new kind of container, which is called expanding. Okay. Let's see how that works. So let me go back to the app. I'm going to refresh the app. So this is what it looks like so far by default, everything being centered. So if I'm going to add this expanding here, okay, for the first text. So this is a very important thing you probably use all the time when you use column or row, right? And then add it to be a child. All right, let's see what happens. Once you say, I want to expand it, this child, if you refresh, automatically, as you can see, this guy here got huge, all right? All it does is try to expand this widget as much as we can. But it's not going to take all the other space. They still have the minimum space they need to display. But the rest of the space will all be given to this one because this widget says they want to be expanded. Take all the widths and heights. So that's how it works. And I can do this one for all the others. I can do another one for example, the next text. All right, also expand it. And child. And you can use the tool to reformat. All right, 2 expanded. Let's see what happened when I refresh, go back. All right, so these 2 texts share the same space because they're both expanded. There's no priority, so they just equally share the space, where the rest just get whatever they need to display their own widgets. Okay, now next is, okay, this is the bigger title, it should take more space, where this one is smaller one, shouldn't take that much space. So they should have different weight. And that's what I mentioned, how to specify weight. So the keyword here is called flex, not called weight. In Android called weight, here it's called flex. So you will say, well, maybe this guy here takes 1/3 of the screen, and then this one here takes, 1/5. And then you got to figure out that the actual number. So let's just try different things. In other words, maybe this one should be 3 times more than this one. That's probably easy. So I'm going to say this one is 3. And then this one here get 1. All right, so I'm going to refresh the page. And then pretty much you can see this one here got 3 and this one here got 1. So it's 3 to 1 ratio. All right, so that's how you can make that work. You could actually apply this to anyone. You can have this one to the text field. Do one more. All right, you can also have that for buttons. Let's give this one to everybody. Yeah, when you start to type all this UI changes like this, adding a child, it's just be careful about the syntax. Okay, but the good thing is they have this formatter, so use this one to clean up your code. Okay, so that's going to help you a lot. All right, so let me refresh the page, go back. All right, so that's what it looks like right now. Everybody got expanded, but these 2 got a 3:1 ratio. The rest just share the space and just try to expand. But you could literally just give the ratio, the weight to everyone, right? So let's actually do it. So I'm gonna put this one here, right? So this one probably also get a 1. This one also get a 1. And then the first button maybe get 1, but the second button maybe get a little bit more. So maybe get 2. All right, so 3, 1, 1, 1, 2. So I refresh, go back. That's what it looks like. As you can see, it's very clear. So this guy here got the majority of space 3, and this one got a 1. This is a 1, 1, and then there's a 1 button here. The second button got a 2. So they actually, that's how they split all this whole screen here. Right. But at the same time, you don't have to do this one for every single element all by wrapping a expanded. For example, these 2 things should be together. You don't really need to give every individual a weight. So what you could do is you could actually wrap these 2 as a group inside a container. The very easy way to do that is to use another column to group these 2 so that you can just control that column. Okay, just let me show you this very quick. So I'm talking about here, okay, this text input box, text field. There are 2 text fields. Now I both use the expanded, okay? A little bit too much, and which is not really needed. I can, first of all, let's just get rid of those. Get back to the original code very carefully. Okay. Yeah, syntax still good as well. All right, reformat the code, so 2 text field. All right, go back, refresh, and they don't have any kind of weight. So if I think these 2 should be grouped together, it's always good to group them, okay? Since they still want to be placed vertically. So I would just use another column, right? Column is just a container. It can contain other columns. So I'm going to do this one here to wrap both. This time, obviously, you need the children, right? Anyway, it doesn't give us suggestion because of the syntax error. So I'm going to copy this one here. Has a list of children, and you need to make sure you wrap it really correctly. Okay. Again, this is the little bit part. Maybe I haven't figured out the best way to type all of this, but it's a little bit messy when your UI get complicated. But just be careful and always use this format to help you to make your code looks better. Now both of these are contained in this column. Right now, again, nothing changed. Okay, they're still, you know, having a minimum space. But for this, right now it's a container, it's a group. I can expand this whole group. All right, so what I need to do, I go to expand it, child, and then I wrap the whole column. All right, again, don't forget just to format it first, otherwise it's gonna get out of control. All right, now again, nothing got, actually no, it's started to change. So let's see what happened right now. So you actually try to expand it, and then some of these are not showing up. And it's actually, whenever you see this little yellow marker here, it's just telling you that for some reason the widget here don't have enough space to show. So that's why you can't see it, okay? This one looks to me right now, I think there are some issues. I guess let's try it. One thing is they have the weight, and then where this one didn't specify the weight, even they only did expand it, I guess there's some kind of default priority. You don't have a lot of priority. Let's try this one first. Okay, I'm gonna give this to wait to see if that's gonna fix the problem. All right, so that does. So that probably tells you, I haven't verified. Okay, if you don't give the weight, even if you just do the expanded, probably the one who has a number has higher priority. So you will lose your priority. But that's where this problem happens. Okay, but again, you probably need to verify it. But you know, if you just run and test it, you can just learn it by yourself. But now the good thing is these two things are together in another column, and I just need to manage that one. All right, so it's much more easier for you to make things consistent. And then you can also write less code. You can easily say, okay, I want to just add some more margins to these two together, and I can, you know, let me just show you. Okay, so if I want to add a margin to this two, I can just directly apply that container on this whole group rather than every single individual one. Same idea, right? So I will go back to here. I'll do a container. Again, child. It's always the containment relationship. One had to be contained by another, either by a child or by children. So container just help with one thing, so it's called a child. And then very carefully find out this column here, do another brackets, right? So that's how you can add this container. From there, I can do a margin, and then I can do just left and right. So I'm gonna do only left, I want to do 20, right, I want to 20. All right, don't forget to reformat your code. All right, let's refresh the page. All right, so now you just apply this margin on the left and the right. All right, so that's how things are working here. Okay, so now this one here, but again, the container, we'll talk a little bit more about all the features you have, but as you can see, the expanded works with column or with row, because this one allows you to control how much space you want to take, how much percentage of space you want to take, and also all the relative weights. This is very powerful, because any kind of given UI, you can definitely, first of all, split the space, space for the whole screen. And then you can dive into every single part to adjust the alignment and everything. For example, this guy here had to be centered. Then that's easy, right? Let's just figure out how to center it. So for the text, for expanded, if you want to center it, I can still use a center. Okay, let's try that. I can just apply a center with a child here. I think that's how you can make that work. So if I refresh that, and this guy got centered. All right. So, but you can see the layout has been controlled. This thing is always going to get that much space, right? And also this one here for the button. Okay, this button you don't really need that big, but because you are using the expanded, so I guess the way to do it is to remove you can't remove the flags here. So let's think about how to fix this. You probably will need another, column to do this, right? Because right now, like this button, okay. So this button here, and actually both buttons, even though we want them to take that much space, we don't want this button to be this big, this high. The button just go back to the normal height. There's no point to make it this high. So let's just focus on this one thing. Okay, I think the solution is you wrap this button with a container with another column or row. So you control that height, but not expand the actual button. So let's try that. Okay, so I'm gonna do this. I will do another column here to wrap this button. And then I will need to do a children because the column has the children only has one. Yeah, that's the thing. That's where it gets really tricky. I think it should be here. No. All right. So it looks like it's the correct one. Yeah, again, there had to be a better way to do all of this kind of editing. Okay, I haven't figured it out, but so let's do a change one time and then quickly just format the code. All right, so this way you apply expanding to the column, and I think that shouldn't expand the button. So let's try that. So if I refresh that, okay, so it does what you want, right? So remember, now this whole space here, you don't see it, but there is a column container. The column receives this expanded weight too, so it actually takes that much space. But the button is just included inside that column, so it will not be directly expanded. All right. But from this example, guys, I want you to see, all right, no matter how complicated the app is, okay, if you look at all the actual apps here, any kind of this login screen or any other screen, even though it looks very fancy, very graphical, but you want to see right now how the layout works. It's general, either vertical first, and then go inside each row. Like this one here will be horizontal. But then you should follow this kind of a top-down approach. Think about what the root container is, and then divide the screen into different portions with weight, and then go to each portion to see how to lay out that portion. Okay, so that's why I mentioned any kind of UI. If you just use column or row, you might be able just to finish that, plus the expanding and weight, plus some kind of alignment. That's it. So don't be intimidated by all the UI things they gave you. In the beginning, let's just focus on the things we know how to use and just keep using it. Eventually, you will find you're really good at those kind of layout, and then you can do everything with those. All right. Okay, guys. Next time, I'm going to show a concrete example on how to use this one to make a complete screen, so that gives you a better idea. All right.